Welcome, Heroscapers! I am Blast Shark, and this is the WarbandScape Introductory Battle Report. WarbandScape is an all-new way to experience the battles of Heroscape with an emphasis on heroes, leadership, and morale. If you want to know more about the WarbandScape mod, I have resources for you in the description. Or you can keep watching this battle report and follow along with the rules commentary as the battle unfolds. Both armies today consist of a single warband, the first of which has Meagle Ironwill at its helm, an exceptional berserker with high leadership and a natural ability to inspire his allies to keep fighting the most imposing enemies. Joining Meagle is everyone's favorite troll, the relentless Krug! With 8 life and 3 defense on 4-ups, it will take a concerted effort from any army to take him down. And once they start, they better finish the job because he hits harder for every wound he suffers. Filling out the rest of this warband are 2 squads of axe grinders. They have a respectable stat line to stick around relatively well while they dish out a reliable amount of shock and wounds. Every army card in this warband shares the same unifying characteristic of the Berserker class, and that makes them cohesive. A unifying characteristic can be a Valkyrie general, a class, or a personality, and this cohesion allows the figures in a warband to generate an additional command point when they're activated. Cohesion is not required for any warband, but that one command point can make a world of difference. The opposing army starts out strong with Tornak. Similarly to Meagle, Tornak has a leadership of 5, which is bolstered with his Decimation Inspiration, allowing him to make examples of his own troops to discourage his warband from fleeing against his will. Following Tornak are the Zetian Guards. What these Solborgs lack in speed, they make up for in range and defensive capabilities. And if anything dire should happen to Tornak, they can take charge with some degree of efficiency with 3 leadership and targeting inspiration to provide a situational attack boost. The main infantry choice for this warband are 2 squads of heavy grunts. These elite warriors are clad in full plate armor, and they effortlessly rush through the smallest gaps in enemy formations like water through a grate. And rounding out this warband is a single squad of blade grunts. Besides their speed, they're unremarkable on their own. However, they're the perfect fodder for Tornak's Decimation Inspiration. This warband is also cohesive through the unifying characteristic of the Valkyrie general, Utgard, so they will generate an additional command point for their turns. The battlefield is Black Ice, designed by Vidar43, and the scenario is objective control. At the end of each round, the player with the most morale worth of figures adjacent to the central glacier scores 1 victory point, and breaking your opponent is also worth 1 victory point. There are 2 glyphs in play. The one nearest the 3-hex rock formation is Krevkor to increase the attack number of common figures by 1. And the glyph nearest the 3-hex glacier is Oreld to increase leadership values by 1. Round 1 begins with the Berserkers winning initiative. During the activation phase, Order Marker 1 is revealed on Meagle Ironwill. Since he has a leadership value of 5 and his warband is cohesive, he generates 6 command points and proceeds to the movement phase. He begins by spending 1 command point to issue a move command to the Axe Grinders. The Axe Grinders have a squad size of 4, so he chooses any 4 of them within 6 clearsight spaces to move. The commanded Axe Grinders then move 1 at a time, up to 4 spaces each because their move value is 4. After finishing those moves, Meagle issues a 2nd move command to the Axe Grinders. The 4 that have already moved this turn cannot be moved again, so the other 4 Axe Grinders will be moving with this command. Then, Meagle spends 1 command point to move on his own with his move of 5, and finishes the movement phase by commanding Krug to move. There are no more figures for Meagle to command in the movement phase, so with 2 remaining command points, he proceeds to the attack phase. None of the Berserkers have anything to attack, however, the Axe Grinders do have the Natural Sprinter's special power, which reads, when the Axe Grinders are issued an attack command, the commanding figure may spend an additional command point. When they do, any number of the commanded Axe Grinders may move 3 spaces before any of them attack. An Axe Grinder must have been unengaged at the beginning of the attack phase to move this way. So, even though they won't be attacking this turn, Meagle can still spend 1 command point to issue an attack command to the Axe Grinders, and then spend an additional command point to make them sprint. He does this so any 4 Axe Grinders within 6 clear sight spaces of Meagle then move 3 spaces, and Meagle is left with no more command points, so the turn ends and the Utgar Warband takes their first turn. Order Marker 1 is on Tornak, so he generates 6 command points due to his 5 leadership and the cohesion bonus. In the movement phase, he issues a total of 4 move commands to each other army card, and then spends a 5th command point to move himself up with the rest of the warband, leaving him with 1 command point for the attack phase. He uses that last command point to issue an attack command to the Zetian guards, because they are in range to shoot one of the Axe Grinders. The Zetian guards have an attack number of 2, which means they roll 2d6 for their attacks, and they have an attack quality of 4+, meaning each die that rolls a 4 or higher counts as a hit. The first Zetian guard rolls its attack dice and scores 1 hit, so the dwarf now has to roll defense. Axe Grinders have a defense number of 3, and this Axe Grinder happens to be standing on higher elevation than the Zetian guard, so their defense number is increased to 4. Their defense quality is also 4+, so each of those 4 dice that roll a 4 or higher counts as a block. Additionally, this game is making use of the optional cover rules described in the WarbandScape rulesbook. So we also need to consider if he's being partially obscured by a terrain piece. In this case, he is partially obscured by the glacier, which counts as hardcover and has a size classification of huge. Because the Axe Grinder is adjacent to this hardcover, and is of an equal or lesser size classification, he adds the hardcover bonus to his defense roll, which adds 1 automatic block to whatever is rolled. After rolling 4 dice, the Axe Grinder rolls 1 block, and adds 1 automatic block because of the hardcover, so he is perfectly safe from this attack. The second Zetian guard then makes its attack against the same Axe Grinder, which means that the Zetian targeting special power activates, so it rolls 3 dice instead of 2. It rolls a single hit again, and the dwarf rolls 2 blocks plus an automatic block from hardcover, so it remains perfectly safe. Tornak is now out of command points, so it goes back to the Berserkers for turn 2. Meagle is activated again and generates 6 command points. He spends a total of 4 command points during the movement phase, so he and every figure in his warband can move. 1 dwarf takes control of the glyph of Oreld, which will make Meagle generate an additional command point next turn, as long as it stays under their control. Meagle also takes a passive position adjacent to the glacier, so he can maintain line of sight to his troops and count his morale towards capturing the central objective at the end of the round. He then proceeds to the attack phase with 2 command points to work with. He could either attack with Krug, or spend both command points to use natural sprinters to charge the Axe Grinders into the orcs. They make the call for natural sprinters to protect the glyph, force engagements, and prevent the orcs from gaining height attacks against their position. The sprinting dwarves then roll their attacks. The first attack is against the heavy grut adjacent to Krug. Axe Grinders roll 4 dice on 5 up for attack, and heavy gruts roll 3 dice on 4-up for defense. But the heavy armor special power improves their defense quality by 1 against this attack because the axe grinders are using normal attacks and they are not disciplined, tricky, or relentless. So it will actually be 3 dice on 3-ups for the grut's defense. The axe grinder rolls 2 hits, and the grut rolls 2 blocks. This means each hit is paired with a single block and thus are partially blocked. So the grut's warband receives 2 shock from this attack. Whenever a warband's shock is equal to or greater than its morale, the warband is suppressed and loses their cohesion bonus, as well as all special powers besides those marked with an asterisk. When it becomes twice its morale, the warband is broken and all of its figures are immediately removed from the battlefield. A warband's morale is determined by the sum of the morale of all of its figures on the battlefield. So, as figures die, the threshold for suppression and breaking lowers. The second attack is down on the heavy grut on Shadow, so the axe grinder rolls 1 additional die for height advantage, and the heavy grut rolls 1 additional die for shadow bonus. The dwarf, needing 5 ups, rolls 2 hits, and the grut, needing 3 ups, rolls 3 blocks. One of those hits is paired with 2 blocks, making that hit have no effect, and the other hit is paired with a single block, so that hit inflicts 1 shock. The final attack is made against that same heavy grut on Shadow. The axe grinder rolls a single hit, and the heavy grut rolls 2 blocks, so there is no effect. Meagle has no more command points for this turn, so it goes back to the Utgar warband for their turn 2. Tornak generates 6 command points. The first thing he does is spend a total of 3 commands moving the blade gruts away from the front line, and then repositioning the heavy gruts into a more unified position around him. Normally, these moves would trigger leaving engagement attacks, but because the orcs all have disengage, they ignore this and disengage freely. Tornak then issues 1 more move command to reposition the Zetian guards. A total of 4 move commands leaves him with 2 commands remaining for the attack phase. The Zetian guards attack first, targeting Krug. The first one is attacking from the same elevation and rolls 2 hits. Krug defends with 3 dice on 4-up and rolls 2 blocks, so the berserkers gain 2 shock. The second Zetian guard attacks with height advantage and Zetian targeting for a total of 4 dice on 4-up and rolls 0 hits. For his final command, Tornak issues an attack with the heavy gruts, and there are only 3 that can attack. Starting with the one nearest the glacier, rolling a base of 4 dice, +1 for Tornak's Orc Warrior Squad enhancement, and +1 for Krevkor for a total of 6 dice on 5-up, the Grut rolls a total of 3 hits. The Dwarf rolls only 1 block, so 1 hit is partially blocked and turned into shock, and the other 2 come through as wounds. However, since the Dwarf has only 1 life, the first wound kills the Dwarf, and the second wound is treated as shock instead. This means the Berserkers gain 2 shock and lose 1 morale due to the Axe Grinder dying. Now the only other possible attack is from the Heavy Grut on Shadow attacking up at the Axe Grinder next to it. It rolls 5 dice because of Krevkor and scores 2 hits. The Axe Grinder defends with 4 dice because of height advantage and rolls 3 blocks. 1 hit is fully blocked and the other is partially blocked, so they get 1 more shock and play passes back to the Berserkers for turn 3. Meagle generates 7 command points this turn because of his 5 leadership, their cohesion, and the Glyph of Oreld. His first command is a rally command, which will remove 2 shock from his warband. Further rally commands this turn will remove only 1 shock. He then spins his second command to move a squad of Axe Grinders back towards the glacier, And his third command orders Krug to move into engagement with the enemy front line. After this, Meagle proceeds to the attack phase with 4 command points remaining. His first order is an attack command to the Axe Grinders, and he spends an additional command point to use the Natural Sprinter's special power to rush some of the commanded dwarves before they attack. The dwarf attacking down on the Blade Gret misses with their attack, but then the same level dwarf rolls 2 hits against it. The Blade Gret rolls 3 dice because of the shadow bonus, but gets only 1 block, so the Utgar warband gains 1 shock and loses 1 morale. The last attacker from this command is the one adjacent to Krug, and he rolls 3 hits out of 5 dice, and the Heavy Gret is saved by the Heavy Armor defense quality by rolling 3 blocks. So this attack inflicts 3 shock. Meagle then spends 1 command point for Krug to attack. Krug targets the Heavy Gret closest to the glacier with 2 attack dice on 4 up, and rolls 1 hit. The Heavy Gret gets 4 dice because of Tornak's enhancement power, but doesn't benefit from his heavy armor because Krug has the relentless personality. The Gret rolls 2 blocks, so the attack has no effect, but Krug continues the assault with his double attack and scores 2 hits on that same Gret, this time killing it and inflicting 1 shock to the enemy warband. With Meagle's last command point, he issues another rally command to remove 1 more shock from his warband, and play passes back to the Utgar warband for their turn 3. Unsurprisingly, Tornak is also Order Marker 3, and he generates 6 command points. The first thing Tornak does is issue a move command to the Heavy Grets so that 2 of them can reposition into engagements. Then orders a Blade Gret to come adjacent to himself. And his third and final move command is for the Zetian guards to reposition for a clear shot on Krug to deny him any cover bonuses. Tornak's fourth command is to rally, and he makes use of his Decimation Inspiration by destroying the Blade Gret adjacent to him. This does lower his warband's morale by 1, but it also reduces their shock by a total of 6. He then proceeds to the attack phase with 2 command points left over. The first is used for an attack command with the Heavy Grets. The first 2 attack Krug from the same level. They gain bonuses from both Krevkor and Tornak to roll 6 dice on 5 ups. The first attack rolls 2 hits, and Krug rolls 2 blocks and so receives 2 shock. The second attack misses entirely. The third Gret also attacks Krug, but doesn't receive Tornak's bonus, so only rolls 5 dice and rolls 4 hits on Krug. Krug receives height advantage for defense, but only rolls 1 block, so he takes 3 wounds and 1 shock. The final attack is against a same level Axe Grinder, and again rolls 4 hits from 5 dice. Because the Axe Grinder rolls only 3 defense, he'll die no matter what he rolls, causing his warband to lose 1 morale and gain 3 shock from the leftover hits. Truly a brutal display of ferocity from the Heavy Grets this turn. Tornak's 6th and final command is an attack from the Zetian guards, and they're targeting Krug. The optional rule for cover does not apply during this attack, however, another optional rule for ranged attacks causing collateral shock does. When a figure is attacked by a non-adjacent figure with a range of 3 or greater, each warband with at least 1 figure adjacent to the target gains 1 shock, excluding the target's warband. So, each time a Zetian guard attacks Krug, they inflict 1 shock to their own warband because he's engaged with Heavy Grets, and the Heavy Grets don't appreciate it when bullets fly past their ears. The first attack misses, but still inflicts the collateral shock, and the second attack rolls 2 hits, and Krug whiffs his defense roll, taking another 2 wounds to finish off the round. A recap of the first round. The Berserkers lost 2 Axe Grinders, and Krug suffered 5 wounds, though they do gain 1 victory point for having more morale worth of figures adjacent to the glacier than their opponent. They're going into round 2 with 8 shock and 18 morale. The Utgar warband lost 2 blade gruts and 1 heavy grut, and their warband is sitting at 4 shock and 20 morale. This next initiative is extremely important because Krug is supercharged with 7 attack on 4 up, but he could easily die before the Berserkers can leverage him if they lose initiative. The dwarves' fate lies in Krug and this d20 rule. And they lose it. Tornak generates 6 command points and issues a move command to bring the blade gruts right next to him, then issues a second command to reposition some heavy gruts, and immediately enters the attack phase with 4 command points. The heavy gruts are attacking first, starting nearest the glacier and working counterclockwise. The first rolls 2 hits, and Krug partially blocks both, gaining 2 shock. The second rolls 3 hits, and Krug rolls a perfect 3 blocks to partially block all and gain 3 more shock. The third attacks up at Krug and scores only 1 hit. Krug matches that with 1 block and almost gains 1 shock before remembering to roll with height advantage, which gives that extra success to gain no shock. There's one final heavy grut to attack up at an axe grinder. The grut rolls 2 hits, and the axe grinder gets a partial block to both to gain 2 shock. Tornak has 3 commands left, so he orders the Zetian guards to shoot Krug. The optional rule for collateral shock means Tornak's warband automatically gains 1 shock from each of these attacks. The first Zetian guard misses, and the second rolls 2 hits, but Krug partial blocks both to gain 2 shock. After gaining the collateral shock from the Zetians, Tornak decimates another blade grut to go right back down to 0 shock, and he passes the turn without anything to do with his final command point. Through some miracle for the Berserkers, Krug is still standing for Meagle's turn 1, and their warband is not suppressed, though just barely. Meagle generates 7 command points and uses 1 to move himself into combat with a heavy grut behind their lines. Then immediately spins another command point for a rally command, which removes 3 shock because of his fearless inspiration. One last move command orders some axe grinders to join him in combat, and 1 more rally command brings their shock down to 13 before heading to the attack phase with 3 commands left. The first attack ordered is Krug, who rolls 5 hits against the Grut by the Glacier. The Grut rolls only 4 defense dice, so it automatically dies, and the 4 excess hits are inflicted as a shock. But Krug doesn't stop there. He's hungry for violence and scores 6 hits against the next Grut with his double attack, dealing another automatic death with 5 shock carried over. Meagle attacks his heavy Grut, rolling a single hit, which gets doubled to 2 from Deadly Strike. But the Orc rolls all 3 blocks, so only receives a single shock. The axe grinders then pile on their attacks to the same heavy Grut. The first 2 attacks are easily deflected, but the third dwarf's attack strikes true, killing the Orc and carrying over 1 shock to Tornak's warband. This is exactly the kind of turn the Berserkers needed after losing that initiative, but their luck needs to keep up if they want to pull out a victory. Tornak activates on turn 2 with 6 command points. Seeing how Krug obliterated the Orc's front line, it's imperative that the heavy Gruts regroup into a stronger formation. So he spends 3 command points to reposition, and his last command before entering the attack phase is to decimate the final Blade Grut, lowering his warband to 5 shock over 15 morale. His final 2 commands are attacks, starting with the Zetian guards targeting Krug. The first attack scores 2 hits. Krug only scores 1 block and takes a wound, leaving him with 2 life. The second Zetian guard rolls 1 hit against 1 block for 1 more shock. Then the heavy Gruts attack. The first one, attacking Krug, rolls 2 hits. Krug being on the same level, only gets 3 defense and needs just 1 block to live for another turn, but tragically rolls nothing. The troll is slain and the berserkers take a massive hit, losing 6 morale, going down to 12, causing them to fall into suppression. One last attack from a heavy grut against a same level dwarf piles on 2 more shock before the turn passes to the berserkers. 17 shock over 12 morale means the berserkers are very well suppressed and need to work hard to keep from breaking. Meagle generates 5 command points from his leadership plus 1 from the Glyph of Oreld, but does not receive a bonus for cohesion because of suppression. Suppression also means that all special powers on his warband's army cards are negated besides those marked with an asterisk, which means they only retain his Fearless Inspiration power. However, if he can leverage this special power to return his warband's shock to below their morale, all those special powers and the cohesion bonus will come back. Hoping for a miracle, Meagle issues the charge on the Zetian guards while he makes his way towards Tornak. Before he attacks, he rallies twice to remove a total of 4 shock due to his Fearless Inspiration, bringing his warband down to 13 shock over 12 morale. This is where another optional rule comes into play, a rule that limits the number of rally commands you can issue each turn. This limit is equal to the number of army cards worth of figures remaining in your warband. When counting common squad army cards, you round it down to the nearest full squad. But unique army cards always count as a remaining card as long as 1 figure from it is on the battlefield. Without this rule, it can become somewhat trivial to rally out of suppression when you have a good leader and not much else. Anyways, 2 moves and 2 rallies leaves Meagle with 2 commands left for attacking. Meagle attacks up at a heavy grut first and rolls 2 hits. Unfortunately though, his deadly strike ability is under suppression, so it doesn't double to 4 hits like it normally would. The heavy grut rolls 4 defense because of height, and heavy armor means he only needs 3 ups, scoring him 3 blocks for a total effect of 1 shock. The final command is a desperate series of attacks from the Axe Grinders against the Zetians, and 1 against a heavy grut on Shadow with Tornak's enhancement. These attacks are all easily deflected by the heavy armor, and only have a total effect of 1 shock. Tornak activates for turn 3 of round 2, and he smells the fear in the dwarves. He engages Meagle and orders his heavy grut forward to join in the slaughter, then orders the attacks. The Zetian guards eviscerate 1 axe grinder and pile 3 shock onto the berserkers. Tornak rolls 3 hits onto Meagle, who rolls a perfect defense with his 4 dice, only to receive 2 shock. Then a heavy grut rolls 2 hits onto him with a same level attack, which inflicts 2 more shock, and the last grut, attacking from height, rolls 2 more hits, which Meagle answers with 3 blocks, causing yet another 1 shock, bringing the axe grinders to 21 over 11. 1 more shock will break them, and the heavy gruts have that opportunity with their final attack. He rolls 1 hit against the same level dwarf, and the dwarf biffs it with triple 1s. They lose 1 morale, leaving them at 21 over 10. Twice or more shock as morale instantly breaks them, so the berserkers are immediately removed from the battlefield. The Uthgar team is victorious.